Hey, Facebook Live. We are live with Chrissy Levett from England. We are live with John Fleischauer. You guys can all wave. We are here with Dhvani Bhatia, who's going to be on in a few, and Asritha. And when it's time for Asritha to come on, I'm going to make sure that I'm pronouncing everybody's name correctly and doing all of that. So we are going to have a really fun time here today. I am almost ready to get started, and I had to do a little bit of retooling, and we are just about ready to go. I've got a few cables that are a little bit shorter than I would like them to be ideally, but it is all good. So let's do a 5 count. Chrissy, if you can give me a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
All right, very good. I'm going to turn myself down just a little bit in the mix, and we're gonna rock this thing. All right, Chrissy, there you are. All right, well, let's see. We are pretty much ready to go. We are live in 3, 2. We are live with Chrissy Levett. Excuse me. We are live with Chrissy Levett. Chrissy, are you ready to talk?
Absolutely.
Chrissy Levett is an award-winning creative director who studied at the Royal College of Art in London. She's the founder and CEO of Creative Conscience, a global organization that encourages and rewards creative thinkers to use their talents for social justice. Chrissy Levett, welcome to the talk.
Oh, thank you, Nate. Very happy to be here.
Well, I am so happy to have you. Your talk is called Vulnerability, the Key to Unlocking Your Creative Genius. I love your talk because you mention a struggle that you have had with dyslexia, and then you go into some of the difficult things. Normally for the rest of us, they would be slips of the tongue, but in your case, it's a condition of dyslexia and how that created difficult situations for you in the workplace. There was somebody, for example, named Hugh. But in your mind, in the talk, you mentioned huge, and he was a little bit, perhaps, shall we say, a little larger. And so that was an example of a very difficult situation. You weren't trying to be silly or funny or inappropriate at all. It was just a condition, and you found that you had to be vulnerable in order to be able to perform and do your very best. So I just wanted to set the plate a little bit. Please, Chrissy, take us behind the talk.
Well, I was asked to do this TEDx talk to inspire a community around actually getting creative. So it wasn't very easy because it was quite a kind of particular brief, I would say. So yeah, I just talk about all the mistakes I made, really, and all the kind of humorous situations I got myself into through being inauthentic. And then I go on to talk about how creativity can build social change around sustainability, social justice, and that I believe that we're all creative.
I love the quote in your talk. You say, you can only be brave if you're vulnerable. When did you realize that to be the case for you, Chrissy?
Sadly, quite late. Probably about 10 years ago. So I wish someone had said that to me when I was in my 20s or even younger. Yeah, quite late to understand that.
For sure. What in your life, if you can take us back, when did you realize that you had dyslexia and some of the implications of that? Were you formally diagnosed at some point, or did you kind of stumble through life or struggle through life with all of these self-limiting beliefs that many people have when they have that kind of a condition? Please just take us back behind the backstory, maybe some of the things that didn't make it into your talk.
Yeah, well, back in the day, I mean, we're talking about the 70s when I was at school, there wasn't such a thing of dyslexia or dyspraxia or autism or any of these things, really. me. So I'm the youngest of 6 kids. My brother and I were particularly dyslexic. And I would suggest that we were just led to believe that we were stupid. I mean, my brother, I remember my parents went into school and they actually said that my brother was retarded. Now, my brother has gone on to become a surgeon. So clearly he wasn't stupid. It's just the way our educational system is being set up. So if you only learn in a particular way.
What was the situation with your brother then, Chrissy? People thought that he was slow in some way, but he actually became a surgeon. So he proved all of that wrong. Did he also have dyslexia, or did he have some other condition? Or wow,
exactly the same. Both of us, I think. I mean, we were just sort of, I guess we were thought through the schooling system to be stupid, to be slow, because we couldn't read and write. But we weren't. We were intelligent individuals, which I think we've both gone on to prove. And actually, it was a kind of a bit of a gift, really, to be put in that situation, because I think we both became incredibly tenacious and went on to be successful in our fields.
Wow. And can you speak to that, the power of perseverance and tenacity to be able to overcome the naysayers? What did in your brother's case, in your case, did you get a little bit of a fire inside of you, or a little bit motivated to prove people wrong? Was it some other desire? What helped you through that? Because a lot of times when someone puts a diagnosis on us, it's a word, it's a label, and it can define us if we're not very careful.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I can't speak for my brother, but for myself, it just made me so determined. I think actually if I hadn't been labelled so stupid, I wouldn't have probably gone on to achieve what I have today. So it was a kind of a gift that the system behaved like that. I'm not sure that it's the same today. I think a lot of people are aware of different areas, people being on the spectrum, if you like, and actually it's quite a different situation today, I'd say.
Well, and the big word that I hear a lot is neurodiversity, and really there's a wonderful case being made that no matter, you mentioned the spectrum, if you're highly focused and maybe not the most socially, traditional in a social way, there are new work models that are putting people to work in highly paid jobs, troubleshooting, locating, kind of laser diagnosing things that the rest of us aren't going to get because we're not focused enough. I've heard on the other end, and I don't know if it really is the other end, but what in a general way might seem like another end, I've heard of people who have Down syndrome being employed in the service industry in coffee shops and restaurants just because they are so personable many times and so friendly, and the rest of us could learn a lot about social intelligence from hanging around such caring people. So what are your thoughts on some of the new advances that we've made, and being able to kind of leave, I would like to say leave some of the stigma behind. We know that's not the case, but we know that society hopefully is moving generally in a better direction. What are your thoughts on that, Chrissy?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. We're all different, and often people who think differently can be more creative or focus on things in a different way. We're working actually here in the UK, Creative Conscience, our organisation is working to try and get the creative industries much more engaged with neurodiversity. So we've done talks, and a lot of people within our community, within our creative community, will say that they have dyslexia or dyspraxia, or they might be slightly autistic, or they have these gifts, if you like, or these different way of thinking. So yeah, absolutely, it's beginning to shift, which is great. I'm
glad to hear that. And if you want to know a little bit more about Chrissy's organization, Creative Intelligence, or Creative Conscience, rather.
That's right.
If you want to hear about Creative Conscience, I'm going to give you the link later in the show. We've been enjoying this talk with Chrissy Levett from TEDx St. Peterport. Her talk is called Vulnerability, the Key to Unlocking Your Creative Genius. And we're going to be back in just a second for the Blitz Round. And we're back with Chrissy Levett. It is time for the Blitz Round. I'm about to ask Chrissy a series of either-or questions related to the preparation and performance of her recent branded talk. Chrissy, are you ready?
Yes.
All right. Well, you already answered the first question I normally ask. Were you invited to speak or did you apply? And you were invited to speak, correct?
Yes, correct.
So you walk out on stage. Did you have nerves, Chrissy, or were you in the zone, or neither, or both?
Yes, I was very nervous. The person who was hosting it had told us each person that was going to be there on the event that we should have a hug before we go on stage. So I was very fortunate enough to get a fantastic hug that released a lot of the cortisone levels. But yeah, of course I was nervous.
Isn't that great? Now, how did you deal with it? Did you walk out on stage and you didn't run away? You committed to the talk? And at that point, did the nerves become manageable, or how did you deal with that?
Yeah, I think breathing is always a good thing before you go on stage. Lots and lots of deep breaths. If someone's around that can give you at least a 30-second hug. But yeah, once you're up there, you just kind of get on with it, don't you? So it was fine.
Very good. Well, I love the idea of having a hug before you go on stage. I think that should be mandatory. But
any
then again,
excuse.
I'm not in a position to lay that stuff out right there. Chrissy, are you a memorizer, an improviser, or a blender?
A blender, definitely.
How does that work for you?
I think I kind of pretty much memorized the things that I wanted to say, but then whenever I get up there, I kind of just go off on a bit of a free flow. So yeah, don't beat yourself up, I guess, if it goes a bit off piste.
What's a tip, technique, or a tool that helped you?
Just really being passionate about what you're talking about, I'd say, is the biggest thing, because then if you do forget what you're saying, it will just come naturally.
What is, this is the cut for time question, what was the most painful part of your talk that you had to cut out for time?
I don't think there was one. I think that, if anything, I was looking for something to put in.
Okay.
Probably didn't find enough to say.
Talk Universe, that's not normally the case. So this might be the first time I've heard that response. I love it. So this is, if that was the cut for time question, this is the Murphy's Law question. You ready? What's the most unexpected, strange, or just plain weird thing that happened during or right before your talk, Chrissy?
During the talk, the timer either wasn't working or I couldn't see it or something. And so what's ironic about it is that I went over time, even though I was searching for things to fill up the time with. And I think that's probably to do with I went a little bit off piste. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, that's why they have the timer there, I guess. But, hey, it made it up. So that's all good stuff. With that, any improvements to what would you have done differently if you did it again? What would you do differently to prepare?
I'm not sure I can answer that. I think it is what it is. I hate watching it. Find it horribly painful. Every time I go it just makes me cringe, and yet I'm still doing it now. I know in the States you say like, and in the UK we probably say I try not to say as much as I do.
Chrissy, I'm going to give you a little secret. We do all of that stuff here, and I think it's universal. I think it's universal, and there's a real popular I don't even want to call it a trend. It's kind of a school of thought. It's almost a best practice right now that if you're too polished as a speaker and you don't say or like or filler words like everyone else, like I just did, you become a little less relatable to people. If you really want to connect, it can be helpful to strategically, be able to perform the talk, but then go and make it a little bit imperfect. So just so you know.
Good to know.
Yeah, just so you know.
You feel so much better.
Yeah. So it's all good, and I'm sure there are different opinions about that. We've been enjoying this talk with Chrissy Levett, and I want to let you know where you can go to watch this talk that Chrissy doesn't watch as much, but I think you should watch it because it's a good talk. It's called Vulnerability, the Key to Unlocking Your Creative Genius. You can go to our show notes page at BeTheTalk.com. We are going to have a link right there that you can use, and you can click right on it. You can also click on creativeconscience.org.uk, creativeconscience.org.uk, to find out more about Chrissy, to connect with Chrissy. If you have anyone that is close to you or yourself have people who are on the spectrum or any of these neurodiverse conditions that we're talking about, and you want more resources, go over to Chrissy's website and connect with her and see what they are doing over there in the UK. Some great work. Now, in a minute, we are going to be back with Chrissy Levett for the 10-second final word of advice. And we're back with the final word of advice for Talk Universe. What is it, Chrissy?
Be passionate. Make sure whatever you're talking about, you are passionate about it. That is my single word of advice.
Chrissy Levett, thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming on the talk today and sharing your wisdom with Talk Universe.
Thank you. Thank you, Nathan.
All right, that's a wrap. Great job. And thank you. And thank you, and thank all of you. Yeah, thank all of you for, and thank all of you Facebook Live for bearing with me today. I tried to do I have a little bit of a different setup today, and I am happy to say that we have knocked this out to a great start, and I am changing the name right here, and we're going to actually, any final word of advice to everybody else who's on deck here, Chrissy?
Oh, lovely to meet you. I'm looking forward to watching your TEDx talks or your TED Talks. Yeah, thanks for being here, and lovely to meet you.
All right, well, awesome. Well, you're welcome to stick around and check it out, or do what you need to do. And we're going to jump on here with John, if I can find the right place here. Here we go. So, John, unmuting you. You still there, buddy?
I'm there. I'm here.
You are
How
here.
you doing?
I'm doing great. So Fleischauer is Fleischauer, correct?
You nailed it.
Okay.
Nailed it.
Well, I didn't nail it. I carefully was typing and double checking and doing.
I was meaning
the
pronunciation. You nailed the pronunciation. I get everything from Fleisch to Flash to Fleisch.
Fleisch to
Think of a fly in the shower.
Fleischauer. Well, there is a brilliant classical piano pedagogue named Leon Fleischer, who taught one of the teachers that I learned from. So not too far of a difference from that, but spelling it can be a little bit different right there. John, if you can give me a 5 count for you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
We're about even. That's great. I'm going to practice your bio before we go on, and then we're rolling. Regarded as one of the top talent acquisition and employer branding professionals in Canada, John Fleischauer and his team at Pivot Edge help growing organizations consistently hire awesome people quickly while reducing their overall recruiting spend. Did I say that correctly? Pivot Edge or Pivot Plus Edge, or what? How do I say
Pivot
that?
and Edge.
Pivot and Edge. Okay.
Yep.
I'll remember that. Very good. Resumes are bad for business. And then I'm scrolling down here. There we go. It is, we want to send people to your LinkedIn profile. I don't see the other website here.
LinkedIn or pivotandedge.com.
Pivot
is
and
fine as well.
Edge, the word and, A-N-D.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
Pivot and Edge. So I'll send them to Pivot and Edge as long as that's, really you. If you're part of the team and you want to think, okay, if you want to think 5 or 10 years down the road or whatever, I can send them to your LinkedIn, or I can still keep sending them to pivotandedge.com.
Pivot and Edge is fine.
That's what I will do. All right. Just make sure, and for everybody else, if you're an employee and you have a company website, that's great if you're a part owner and you want to keep sending the traffic there. But I really want to send the traffic to you, which is why I bring up the LinkedIn if you don't have a personal website or a company website, anything like that. John, any questions for me before I hit the record button within the Facebook Live here?
No, I think Chrissy was a great leadoff batter.
She was.
And
she really
good
was.
To go.
All right. Well, excellent. Okay. Well, we are live in 3, 2. We are live with John Fleischauer. John, are you ready to talk?
Nathan, I was born ready.
Regarded as one of the top talent acquisition and employer branding professionals in Canada, John Fleischauer and his team at Pivot and Edge help growing organizations consistently hire awesome people quickly while reducing their overall recruiting spend. John Fleischauer, welcome to the talk.
Thanks so much, Nathan. Pleasure to be here.
So your title of your talk is called Resumes Are Bad for Business, and you're flashing this piece of paper at the audience. You come out walking on the stage. You're like, What could this piece of paper be? Is it a secret code? Is it a recipe? Is it the lottery ticket? Is it, and you go through this whole thing, and it's just brilliant because resumes, the piece of paper, going to an analog piece of paper in an age of digital abundance, in an age where universal knowledge almost is just a Google search or a LinkedIn search or a social media search away, is really kind of laughable. And I think you forgive me if it wasn't Da Vinci who you brought up. You referenced one of the scientists said that person would be so amazed at how almost backward we are just sifting through a piece of paper. You didn't use those words. That's my little provocative synopsis, but that's basically what you said. Resumes are bad for business. John Fleischauer, please take us behind the talk.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was really the culmination of, I guess, my own personal journey in my career in the recruiting and talent acquisition space for years and years and years, as well as all of the stories that I've heard from thousands of candidates around, this is the job that I want to do. I haven't necessarily done it before, but we all know that the top performers out there, the people at the top of their game, they're not people that just go to another organization to do the same thing they've already done. They want to tackle projects or challenges that they haven't had that chance to tackle before. But oftentimes the way that the internet has structured the way organizations and individuals come together, it's very much based on what have you done in the past and what can you do for me tomorrow sort of thing, combined with the idea that the traditional gatekeepers in organizations in terms of bringing new people into the organization, they're typically HR people. And HR people, there's different variations and different mindsets. And if you look back, say 20, 30, even 10 years ago, HR people, to a certain extent, were almost regarded as traffic cops and people that create policy and program and that kind of thing. Now, there are a whole different subset of HR professionals out there today that are much more strategic and command that seat at the leadership table of the organization and really put in the people strategy that drives the business strategy. But at the end of the day, within the HR profession, the idea of the marketing and the sales and the identification of raw talent and what success looks like, it can be lacking. And so I was looking back at some of the best hires that I've ever made in my career, and most of them didn't have that direct experience into the job that they excelled at prior to being hired. It was more around capability, mindset, mission, vision, values of what's important to those people and how they were able to apply that skill set or potential into that new environment that made them successful. And so it was really around the commentary of guys, with all of the advancements of technology and pace and speed, think about what Leo Da Vinci would do on Tinder these days. What would even happen there, But that's the world that we're in right now, where you have that raw capability and you have that ecosystem or that environment where raw capability can excel, but they're not connecting. So it was really a commentary around, guys, like, let's stop focusing on capturing who we are or who we were in 2 pieces of paper, and let's start engaging with people that share your values and share the goals and share why you get up in the morning.
John, I shudder to think what Leo da Vinci would do on Tinder these days. That is a frightening.
I think he'd come up with a way to swipe right really fast.
Oh my gosh. I don't think I've even been on Tinder. Fortunately, I met my wife on the internet about 10 years ago. So that was well before the age of Tinder. So I really almost don't know what I'm talking about, but I generally know what it does. Hey, Talk Universe, this is great that we're talking to John right now, because really this isn't so much about a resume conversation. This is about hiring. This is about talent retention. This is about culture. And this is about really updating the HR department, some of whom are more progressive, but some of whom are, still kind of locked in the 80s, maybe the 90s, maybe the 70s. And it's a war out there. The unemployment rate, regardless of what people think or feel about the current administration, the unemployment rate is very, very low right now, and that turns up the heat on these organizations. That means it's going to cost even more. That John's clients are having more pain point. They're paying more money. They're losing people faster, and it's more of a crisis than ever before to have a good culture and to have a right way and an efficient way to be able to bring the right people on the right seats on the right bus, as I think it was Jim Collins from Good to Great put it. So, John, this is really a culture conversation. Let's call it what it is. I mean, I like the resume piece because that broadens it to everybody who's on the other side of the application desk. But really, this is about helping companies and organizations strengthen their bench strength, make more money, pour it right back into doing their services and their products and making them better and better than ever before. So what are your thoughts on that? I've kind of broadened the scope of this. We have a couple more minutes. I want to kind of give you a free range here for the next couple minutes to speak to any of those pieces.
Yeah, I think you nailed it on the head for sure. Like, at the end of the day, an organization's culture is really the end result of its people and how its people interact with each other and their customers, period. And when you look at, for the most part, every organization, their greatest financial expense is its people, straight up. It's payroll, it's benefits, it's all that kind of stuff. So every organization is shelling out probably 50% of their overall revenue on its people. But at the same time, this is a really good thing because its people are its biggest opportunity to differentiate itself in the market. And that's through its people as well. So, when you have a good day at work, you bring that home with you. Your wife, your partner, your brother, your sister, your mom, your dad. How was work? Oh, or holy crap, we did this today. It was awesome. You have a bad day at work, you bring that home too. And so if you have kids and you're at soccer practice and you talk to the other parents about what you guys are doing at work and blah, 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 blah. If you are constantly that parent that goes to the field every day and talks about how horrible their job is, that parent doesn't want to work for that company. And so you're absolutely right. It's all about really helping organizations discover what exactly makes them unique and how to really harness that and amplify that message through its people. And that in turn brings more people that are like-minded to that organization. And I know I made reference to Martin Luther King Jr. He didn't have a marketing budget. Like, he had a vision, he had a dream, he had a belief. And it's because others shared that belief of what that future could look like. That's why they showed up. That's why they got involved. And organizations can do that today. They just don't realize it. And so it's very much a scenario of, to build a successful company, you need to have a successful culture. I haven't seen any organization on the planet that has a horrible culture that's successful. So you're absolutely right. It's very much a discussion around people at scale within an ecosystem, and that in itself is an organization's culture.
We've been enjoying this talk with John Fleischauer. His recent talk is called Resumes Are Bad for Business, as well as a whole bunch of other cultural things and PR, HR types of things as well. We are going to be back to talk a little bit more behind the talk in just a moment in the Blitz Round. And we're back with John Fleischauer. It is time for the Blitz Round. This is when I ask John a series of either-or questions related to the preparation and performance of his recent talk. John, are you ready?
I'm good to go.
All right. First question. Were you invited to speak or did you apply?
I was invited to speak, and it was kind of a funny scenario. I got the invite through Twitter, and I was working in Australia at the time and woke up, came into the office, logged into LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, got the note, and was blown away. It was a scenario where it wasn't expected. I didn't even know there was an event coming. And when I got the note saying, hey, we'd like you to speak at this TEDx event, what are your thoughts? Immediately I thought, I got to book a flight home. Absolutely.
Congratulations. Were you dealing with nerves, or were you in the zone, or neither, or both?
Yeah, that's a great question. So ultimately, yes, I had some nerves for sure. Now, normally I'm fairly collected, but even at the beginning of the talk, I think I made some reference to, I'm really nervous right now, I'm really sorry. And ultimately, I got the invite through Twitter. I had the phone call, the video chat. This is what the event is. This is what we want to talk to you about. But they never made me aware as to why they were picking me, and I never asked why they were picking me. And they contacted me 3 weeks before the event, so it was very much a last minute addition scenario.
Oh, my. Well, I think maybe there was something else going on. They may have needed to fill in there a little bit.
So ultimately what happened when I went on, when the host introduced me, and I had never heard this story, but when the host introduced me, she shared to the audience that John is a late edition, and he is a late edition because when we started to advertise the event, their social media started to fill up with people asking if I was going to be speaking. I didn't see any of this because I was in Australia at the time. And so she shared that story just as I'm about to walk up, and now I'm thinking, like, holy crap, now I feel the pressure. Great. Thanks, guys.
All right, so two things from that talk universe. Number one, if you want to be invited to speak, somehow leverage your influence. Not that John did, but people were talking about John so much and expecting him to be at this TEDx event, and so he got the late invite, and then he found out literally before he walks on stage, which I can't imagine the pressure of that. I closed out my the event that I was selected. It wasn't my event, but it was the selected. But I knew about that a month or so ahead of time, and I could prepare and everything else. But I can't imagine hearing that in my introduction and then walking out and doing that anyway. Wow. Are you a memorizer, an improviser, or a blender, John?
Improviser with a touch of blend. Ultimately, I had an idea of what story I wanted to tell. I had an idea of what were the main points that I wanted to drive home. But I only really created that outline 2 days before the event. And it was a scenario where I memorized things growing up. I memorized things in university. I have the capability to memorize. But as it relates to presenting information and engaging a crowd, I'm not a memorizer at all. So I had a general idea of what I was going to say and what the main points were. But that piece of paper in my pocket that you referenced at the beginning of the show, that was a last minute. It's like, I should use a visual. Why not? So it was last minute. It was I'd say 90% improvised, 10% plan.
Some of my best gestures or visuals, as you say, have happened to me and occurred to me the night before or right before going on stage. So I know the power of that. Incidentally, where is TEDx Canada? With a K.
Canada.
Okay.
It's Ottawa, Ontario,
okay.
Canada.
Canada. All right, because you can almost say that. Almost sounds like Canada. It's Canada. Right there. All right.
Silicon Valley of the North.
Silicon Valley of the North, powerful. So this is my next question, and you already told us the most unexpected, strange, or just plain weird thing that happened right before your talk, which is when you find out that everyone's beating down the door virtually, that they want you to speak, and you just find out about it right then. What was something else that was really strange that happened during your talk or right before?
Yeah, great question. So it's a couple years ago now, but I remember the last thing the organizer said to me before I went on stage was make sure you stay on the red carpet. And the red carpet was a circular carpet, and it wasn't very big. And so I got in my own head because I do this a little. I walk around. I'm accustomed to engaging audiences. And so I caught myself a few times going off the edge of the carpet. So I found that to be a little distracting, but other than that, it was a great opportunity. I had a lot of fun doing it. The lights, the audience, people engaged with the jokes. It was good overall, but the carpet sticks out in my mind as a ooh.
We've been enjoying the Blitz round with John Fleischauer of TEDx Kanata. His talk is called Resumes Are Bad for Business. If you want to check it out, go to our show notes page at bethetalk.com. We'll have a link. You can watch that talk, as well as you can connect with John over at pivotandedge.com. Pivotand, edge.com. And in just a moment, we're going to give John the 10-second final word of advice. We'll be right back. And we're back with John Fleischauer. It's time for the final word of advice for Talk Universe.
I think if you're a job seeker or you're in a hiring scenario where you're seeking employees, forget about focusing on your dream job or your dream employee and focus on identifying and engaging with people that share your values. At the end of the day, people want to work with people who believe the same things as them. And by focusing on the two-dimensional details that don't even matter, you're not going to be successful. Focus on the values and not on the pieces of paper.
Focus on the values, Talk Universe. John Fleischauer, thank you so much for coming on the talk today and sharing your wisdom with Talk Universe.
My pleasure. Thanks so much.
All right, that's a wrap. Great interview. Thank you, John.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Awesome. Any words of advice for Dhvani and Asritha?
Just be yourself. Just be yourself, and it's you're very engaging. You're very comforting. You're good to go. Loved it.
Yeah. And I'm really, people may or may not know this, I'm super flustered because I'm using a different tech setup today. And I'm like, but it's all come together just fine, and I'm just tickled. So before I forget to mention this, there is a Facebook alumni group for Talk alumni like yourself. Congratulations, you're the newest Talk alumni. If you would like to stay connected, not just to me, but to all the other, we've had well over 200 Talk alumni, and it's a great way. I wanted to find a way to be able to connect people to one another, and really, there are other people that have culture type talks that are amazing that you might want to cross reference in the future or be cross-referenced in. All you need to do is just reach out to me and let me know that you want to be in that group, all of you. Not you, Talk Universe, unless you actually come on the talk, but this is something that I do that a lot of times I forget to mention. So just mentioning that out to all of you. Dhvani, how are you? I'm trying to unmute you. I'm trying to get into the right place here. John, thank you so much. Dhvani, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Let's go straight to the 5 count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
We're great. All right. And let's see. Dhvani Bhatia. Am I saying your name correctly?
So the V is pronounced like a W, so Dhvani Bhatia.
Dhvani Bhatia. Okay. Dhvani Bhatia. Bhatia is a junior at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, studying business and music. Passionate about writing, visual arts, and public speaking, Bhatia is excited to pursue a career that blends all her interests. And let's look for, did you give me, I have this annoying PDF that I have to scroll, so I'm looking at whether you gave me a LinkedIn or an actual web link here before we jump on the recording here. Dhvani. You know what? No, I'm seeing that right there. Could I just send people to your LinkedIn? Would
Yes,
that be okay?
that would be perfect.
So,
yes.
and I won't, I don't list all of that stuff out because it's LinkedIn, and just go
Yeah.
to the show notes page and all of that. Any questions for me before we jump on?
I'm good. I'm ready to go.
Awesome. And Asritha, we're gonna be a little bit over time. Are you okay with that? If you can give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, you all right? And then we're going to have somebody else popping in, and then I've got a little bit of a break, and then I do my next 5, and I've found interesting ways to coordinate the scheduling and all that. But thank you for being flexible with that, Asritha. All right. Good deal. Well, if I don't whack the microphone here. Any other questions for me, Dhvani?
I'm good. Thank
All right.
you so much.
Awesome. And so should I refer to you as Bhatia or Dhvani?
You can say Dhvani Bhatia.
Dhvani Bhatia. Okay, but when
Yeah.
I'm conversationally talking with you.
Yeah, I just took that bio from my TED Talk. So
Oh, okay.
referred to me from my
Okay.
last
Well,
TED
okay.
Talk.
So
Called
we're
me
not
Dhvani.
doing the reversal thing.
No.
The
I
last
just
name
yeah.
first.
Dhvani's fine.
Okay. Very good. All right. Well, we are live in 3, 2. We are live with Dhvani Bhatia. Dhvani, are you ready to talk?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Dhvani Bhatia is a junior at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, studying business and music. Go Tar Heels. Passionate about writing, visual arts, and public speaking, Dhvani is excited to pursue a career that blends all her interests. Dhvani Bhatia, welcome to the talk.
Thank you so much for having me, Nathan.
Your talk is called The Most Important Word in the English Language, and I love it because you talk about failure as really an open door to all kinds of new possibilities. That word no is so important because we either just completely give up or we learn to explore and come up with all kinds of new solutions that we wouldn't have had. Those solutions come after the no. Dhvani, please take us behind your talk.
Yeah, absolutely. So the most important word in the English language, spoiler alert, I believe is no. And the way I came through this journey is that through my application to UNC Chapel Hill, the writing prompt for the essay was actually write a TED Talk. So I wrote this talk, a summarized version, and on a whim, I applied to TEDx Raleigh.
No kidding.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
this
it
was your
very-
UNC application.
Yeah, absolutely. It was my UNC application, and then I had no intentions of ever being able to make it on stage at TEDx Raleigh. I had just applied on a whim, and I got the call back for an interview, and I thought the interview went terribly. So I was just another rejection I was expecting, but fortunately, I was able to speak, and after preparing for 2 or 3 months, and that was my first time ever speaking in such a big setting, I gave the talk in March 2016, and it was the best thing I've ever done. It was amazing.
I love it because you really just illustrated the power of no. You weren't given a no from anyone else. It was almost like a inside of your head no. But then you thought, why don't I already wrote a TED Talk for my application for college. Why don't I just blast it out there? Which is a great way to get accepted. There's a course that I have called Get Accepted. That's one of the first things you have to do is actually apply, not just one place, but like you were in college or applying for a job or applying to a program somewhere, you've got to send it out there. So the first no to me that you didn't say, the no was almost subliminal in your head, and then you overcame that no. You sent it out there. You said, what's going to happen? And the funny thing to me, Dhvani, is that you were selected, and the reason that you were selected is because all the other thousands of students that wanted to get into UNC didn't do the same thing that you did, or else you would have had a lot more competition for this. Have you ever thought about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think about it all the time. And actually, it's a funny story because I was not planning to go to UNC. At the time of my talk, I was actually leaning towards NC State. And I never even thought that I would be able to take that essay, that 500-word essay that I thought would make me look like a desirable candidate, a desirable student for UNC, and be able to transform that into something that could be projected to, like, at this point, thousands of people, which is crazy. And I was able to share that with an audience that was super receptive and be able to communicate with other speakers and interact with them and be able to share my story that way.
All right, so I'm going to ask you a question that's automatically going to DQ me. It's going to make me look very uncredible as a host, but I'm going to ask you this anyway because it leads to a bigger question. Ready for this?
I'm ready.
I need to ask this. Are you Generation Z or are you considered millennial? Because I'm Generation X. I'm only 2 above the Z, but I'm even kind of hazy on that. So do you know the difference, or can you enlighten me? What do you consider yourself?
I was born in 1997, so I believe that I'm considered a millennial.
Okay.
However, I do feel a little I feel like I'm in the middle. Like my sister, she's Gen Z. And
okay.
We are like different on many levels.
Well,
so.
the reason I'm asking is not so much to make me look less knowledgeable, but I wanted to clarify that piece. I mean, the criticism and first of all, every generation gets criticized, just massively criticized from the previous generation, and really hyper criticized from like 2 or 3 generations away. And 20 years ago, when Nirvana was big and I was a high school student or a college student or whatever, we were getting beat up by, the World War II generation, the greatest generation. Didn't understand this loud music, for example. Now it's the millennials, and pretty soon it's going to be Gen Z. And the thing that the millennials often unfairly get, but they get stereotyped, and they get stereotyped as being easily discouraged because of the infamous participation trophy, and we all get angry about the participation trophy because we know the real world, you don't get a participation trophy, you either win and succeed or you don't. And then here's my point. That's where your talk comes in, because when you get a no, when life gives you a no, what do you do about it? Do you cry? Do you give up? Do you try to collectivize and go on, have a hashtag or, do all of these little, typical stereotypy things? Or do we do what you say to do in the talk? Do we look for other options? I think it's a huge a voice. I think you're a huge voice for your generation. What are your thoughts about that? What would you say to other millennials, Gen Z people? They come up against failure. They're tempted to take maybe an easier way out, to complain perhaps, and we all are, by the way. But what would you say?
I would say to millennials, Gen Z, and anyone, and that was the point when I started this talk, was I wanted to make myself relatable to my age group, because I was there on stage with professionals that were extremely qualified in their fields, and I was just an 18-year-old kid with half the audience questioning me. So I just wanted people my age, my generation, to realize that failure is inevitable, regardless of how old you are. And even though it may seem that it could be this daunting thing to be afraid of, that word no could actually just be a life changer in a way, and really kind of motivate you to try something new, which is, I think, the way that millennials kind of got to where they are. We innovated and, changed the world slowly, but now it's just, next thing you know, like there's just a new technology or something, that's solving a new world problem every day. So that's just a result of probably many no's that had been turned into a yes.
Dhvani, I have, I'm a little senior to you, so I'm going to give you some really encouraging advice, as well as any other, millennials, Gen Z, whatever comes after that. You ready for this?
I'm ready.
And I think that other people would really back me up on this. As you go through life with a learning attitude, with a mindset of growth, which is exactly what you're describing here. It's the mindset that says no is just a better yes down the road. As you go through life with that kind of a mindset, instead of a give up or complain or whine mindset, you're going to find that no becomes the greatest yes in the future. You're going to find, the temporary impasse, if you face it with the right mindset, with a growth mindset, it's going to be the best pivot points, and after the crisis or after the difficulty, you'll look back and say that was the biggest blessing in disguise in my life. Do you have any clue what I might be talking about, Dhvani?
Yeah, absolutely. And I apply that now in college all the time. It's so weird. I take my own advice. Although I've never watched my TED Talk before. I'm too scared to do that. I can't watch myself on video.
Oh, you've got to.
I've yet to watch.
No,
I've watched snippets, but
you can't do that. You can't come on Be the Talk and tell and come up to this point in the interview and sell us all on the power of no and adversity and having a learning attitude, and then tell us I've never watched my own talk before. You got to cross that bridge, Dhvani.
I will. I mean, Nathan,
I'm going to hold this podcast hostage. I'm not going to release this podcast until you tell me what you think of your own talk. Okay? I'm holding your feet to the fire.
I can't watch myself on video. It's probably the most horrifying thing. And the worst was when I was preparing for it. I'd have to record myself at least 2 or 3 times a day, and it was just brutal to listen to.
Oh, that's so funny. So, yeah. I mean, this kind of dovetails into the Get Accepted course. The first thing that we have to do, and give me 15 seconds, Talk Universe, for this. The first thing we have to do is cross that bridge. Cross the bridge of paralysis, cross the bridge, and we do that by desensitizing ourselves to the way we sound and the way we look on video. It's what I'm doing right now. I've got Dhvani on video looking at herself right now. It's not the worst thing in the world. We both look great, and the more you desensitize yourself, the more you listen for content and making things better, as opposed to, I've got a zit on my nose today, or whatever the case may be. No, we're listening to content, and we're listening for that, and we're listening constructively, and that's how we do it. And we do it short enough and rapidly and repeatedly enough, and we desensitize ourselves, so that's not an issue. So, Dhvani, man, good for you for getting accepted without having to quite do all of that stuff. But that's my advice that you didn't ask for today for you, if you're willing to still listen to me, folks. She's still on the line, so it's a good thing. Any response to that before we pivot over to the Blitz round?
No, I just wanted to thank you. Any advice is highly appreciated.
Well, any advice, Talk Universe, as you already know, is highly, almost inappropriate. So you got to be careful. The reason that we're talking about this is really pivoting over to you, because there are resources that can help you if you haven't given your talk to change the world yet. We've been enjoying this amazing talk with Dhvani Bhatia. In a moment, we're going to pivot over to the Blitz round. And we're back for the Blitz round with Dhvani Bhatia. I'm about to ask Dhvani a series of either-or questions related to the preparation and performance of her recent TEDx Raleigh talk. Are you ready, Dhvani?
I'm ready, thank you.
All right. So you already answered this question. Were you invited to speak, or did you apply? You repurposed your college application, and you're 2 for 0 on that talk. You got into UNC Chapel Hill, which is one of the most highly regarded schools, and you got into TEDx Raleigh. I love it. And so the other irony about this is the Blitz round, but the irony is you weren't given any no's on this application. Have you tried to repurpose this application for anything else that wasn't yet successful?
Not yet, although I can say that I tried to repurpose this talk for other audiences, and it's a little tough. So I have received some no's in some later public speaking endeavors. I will say that.
We're all saying yes. She finally got a no. But I think there's a lesson there, because you put your best thinking into these your best. So why not repurpose it? Why not tweak it by 10, 20%, repurpose it, save all that time, use your best thinking, and make that work? You walk out on stage, Dhvani. Did you have nerves, or were you in the zone, or neither, or both?
I definitely had a panic attack right before going on. It was my first time speaking.
Your first time public speaking?
In front of an audience
TEDx
of 700 people, yes.
Ooh, wow.
Yeah, absolutely. I had a panic attack. I couldn't breathe, and the speaker before me was phenomenal, so that was much better. But I got on stage, and I couldn't see anyone. The lights were really bright, so that helped a lot.
Oh, you like that?
I
love
like
it.
that because there wasn't intimidating glares, but the audience was super receptive, and I just had to remind myself that public speaking is essentially a conversation that the speaker, or in my case, like me, I own. So if I just got back down to that, then I was fine. I was good.
Powerful Talk Universe. Dhvani just said it. You walk on that stage, you own that stage. Take the time they give you, or a little less, and in that time you own the stage. I love it, and I love that you found the glare of the lights actually more comforting than being able to see people. That's something that I talk about sometimes. Sometimes you walk out. I walked out on my stage expecting the glare, and as a former performing artist, I know what it's like. You walk out and you can't see anyone. I walk out on mine and I can see everyone just because of the lighting and the ambient light and all of that. That was a little strange. So just the counterpart with that, I would have preferred the bright lights as well. Are you a memorizer, an improviser, or a blender, Dhvani?
I am definitely a blender. I cannot follow a script to a T, or I prefer not to, I would say that. My speech always had a different tweak every time I did it, but I definitely can stay to an outline.
Awesome. This is the cut for time question. What was the most painful part that you had to cut out of your talk?
So when I was originally doing this talk, I had to take out a lot of some other smaller failures. It was in high school. So for me, a big failure was, not getting an A in a class. So we found that, my coach, the curator, we found that a little less relatable to the rest of the audience. So it was a little painful to cut out because it was personal to me and my personal goals, but it was a little less relatable and a little less I was less able to connect with the audience that way. So I had to take some of the smaller academic failures out and focus on some of the bigger things that happened during my journey.
Powerful.
But it was great regardless.
Yeah, and Talk Universe, that's why I asked the question, because just what Dhvani says, it's got to be for the audience. There are so many personally gratifying, personal moments that we want to share with the audience that simply a lot of them aren't going to land. They're just filler, and we have to be willing to do what Dhvani did and cut that out. Dhvani, I could be wrong. Did you have like a ridiculously short talk? Or am I've reviewed a whole bunch of talks for this week, but was that your talk that was ridiculously short?
It was about, I believe, 13 minutes.
Okay. That's pretty short.
Ridiculously short.
That's pretty short.
Pretty short.
So
yeah.
Good for you. That was, I think they give us different organizations, different situations. So a 13-minute talk is a nice length for a talk. So good for you on that. What was the most unexpected, strange, or just plain weird thing that happened before or during your talk, Dhvani?
Oh, I have a great story for this. So during my talk, and you'll never see this in the video, so this is an all-time exclusive for you, my slides stopped working in the middle. And a big error message came on the screen. Yeah, it just came on the screen. My slides stopped working. I saw on the screen below me, in my head, I'm like, okay, that's great. But I just kept talking because at that point it wasn't me speaking, it was just the muscle memory of like memorizing and like knowing what I was going to say. And I just kept talking, and I just trusted that the AV people and the tech people in the back knew what slides corresponded with what parts of my speech. And I just acted like it never happened. So I kept going. But yeah, there was a huge error And I could see in the back some of the other speakers, like that look of horror on their face that, oh my God, that like her slides have not worked.
Dhvani, I gotta jump in on you. I'm gonna cut you off right here because this is your first time public speaking, and you knew to do that veteran boss move. When the slides don't work, just keep on going. Don't let it fluster you, and just don't acknowledge the tech issue and plow ahead with what you're going to say. That's remarkable.
Thank you. Yeah, it was very scary, but that was a moment where I just kept going. I knew that if I stopped, it would just be a lot worse than, a simple tech issue.
How did you know that? I mean, it's one thing to be in the audience and know that because you're not doing the hard work. You're not in the middle of a panic attack. How did you know that just to plow through? Or maybe it's like doing the Tony Robbins fire walk. If you stop, you're going to get fried. Was it almost that kind of a thinking that, hey, I'm going to go through and I'm going to do what I came here to do and get off the stage as soon as I can after I did what I was going to do? Or did you just default to that?
I want to think of it as like a fight or flight response almost that I don't know. I was just so passionate about what I was speaking that it was easy for me to continue talking. And I knew who was in the back doing AV. She was a remarkable person, and I knew she knew exactly what my slides were. So I kind of just put my trust in the whole team, and it worked out perfectly. And you can't tell in the video. So that's all that matters, I think. And everyone in the audience, no one really cared after that little 30-second glitch. So it all worked out.
Love it. We've been enjoying the Blitz Round with Dhvani Bhatia. Her talk from TEDx Raleigh is called The Most Important Word in the English Language. If you want to check out that talk, go to bethetalk.com, our show notes page. We will have a clickable link in there. And better yet, we will have the LinkedIn profile for Dhvani so you can actually connect with her. If you're looking for interns, if you're looking for people who are still in school right now, who are the best and brightest, you want to check out what Dhvani is doing in her space. And we're going to be back with Dhvani Bhatia in just a moment for the 10-second final word of advice. And we're back with the 10-second final word of advice with Dhvani Bhatia.
All right, so my 10-second final word of advice is that public speaking is just a conversation, and it's not as intimidating as it might be. You own the stage. It's all you. No one else can refute what you're saying at that time. So just keep that in mind when you're owning the stage and preparing and giving your talk.
Dhvani Bhatia, thank you so much for carving time out of your busy schedule to share your wisdom with Talk Universe today.
Great. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. That's a wrap.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, Asritha. Let's figure. Oh, this is so. If you saw what I see when I'm playing around with this Facebook Live technology and everything else. How you doing, Asritha?
Good. How are you doing?
Very well. Last but not least by any stretch. Dhvani, what advice do you have for Asritha?
It's just a conversation.
Okay.
It's supposed to be. Okay. You know, everybody today has been doing a really good job of having a dialogue with me. Sometimes I have people that come on and I ask them that first question. They don't take a breath for about 8 or 9 minutes, and we just go straight to the Blitz round because frankly, I don't interrupt people if they're doing that. We haven't done that at all. And just like Dhvani said, it is a conversation. Now, I kind of misspoke a little earlier. I'm so used to doing 1-hour slots, I forgot that I had this pinned at a 90-minute slot, so we're actually right on time. So
awesome. Okay.
So that's actually a good thing. We're going to have we're going to have our 11 o'clock jump in here in a moment, and he'll see the big show in progress. He'll be muted by default, which will be a lot of fun. So, Asritha, I need to make sure that I'm pronouncing as my as my little tablet has decided to die on me right at this moment. Asritha Swaminadhan. Am I saying that correctly? Not really?
Almost.
Almost.
Asritha Swaminadhan.
Swaminadhan. Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. Swaminadhan.
It's
okay.
always the last name
Asritha
that people
Swaminadhan. Okay.
Yeah.
And part of the problem is I've got a very compressed Excel sheet that actually pinches the thing. So you're on a couple of lines.
Yeah.
You're actually on 3
Whole
lines
letters.
just because
Okay.
of the things, the obstacles and the gymnastics that I have to jump through to make make this work sometime. All right, so let's do this. Let's give you a 5 count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Asritha.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
All right, pretty good. All right, here. Okay, I'm going to scroll it back up. There we go. Asritha Swaminadhan is an aspiring video and multimedia journalist. She loves spending free time reading books. Her favorite writers include J.K. Rowling. She has a newfound love for Stephen King. She enjoys nature, wildlife photography, and traveling, and hopes to set foot on all 7. I'm assuming the next word is continents. It got cut off. So
Yeah.
that's my little educated guess right there.
Yeah.
So that is good. My apologies to Dhvani earlier because I had the last person's. I am typing out your name here. Swaminadhan.
Yeah.
Okay,
Perfect.
so I've got you on there from the start right here, which is good. All right, any questions for me?
This is not going to appear on Facebook Live. Like, I wasn't sure if you mentioned that or not, or is it?
Yeah, we are on Facebook Live. So I've been broadcasting this whole block. I can turn it off, and we would say bye-bye to all the Facebook Live people if you prefer that. But this is basically a recording within a broadcast. So I've been recording individual podcast episodes. Like I said earlier, I used to do this, and it was kind of interesting because I'd have these like 2.5 hour breaks, and I was like, this is not the way to do it. The better way to do it, just from a quality perspective and energy level perspective, is to have it a little bit more fluid like this. So it's all good.
Okay.
And I'm doing another 5 at I think at 12 or 11:40 or something like that. So
Wow.
it's gonna be fun. I've learned after a little bit of time to be a little bit more flexible on the time right there. Very good, but it's tricky for all you Facebook Live people, just because if we're not on Be Live, which I originally tried to do but had just a couple of little techie things, it's tricky on this Zoom plus this bridge thing that I'm using, because I can't actually read your bios off the screen because I am sharing my screen. I don't want everybody's, all of that stuff on here. So I've learned that I've learned that by seeing other people doing things like that. I'm thinking that's not what we're going to do. All right, we are ready to rock, and we are live in 3, 2. We are live with Asritha Swaminadhan. Asritha, are you ready to talk?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Asritha Swaminadhan is an aspiring video and multimedia journalist. She loves spending free time reading books. Her favorite writers include J.K. Rowling, and she has a newfound love for Stephen King. She enjoys nature, wildlife photography, and traveling, and hopes to set foot on all 7 continents. Asritha, welcome to the talk.
Thank you for having me.
How are you doing with all 7 continents? I know for me, I think I'm up to 3 or maybe 4, and I'm a whole lot older than you. So you making progress there?
So far I only have 2. I've
All
only
right.
traveled to... Oh, wait, no, Australia, yeah, so 3. Australia is not a continent, but, it's a country.
She's doing pretty well, Talk Universe. Her talk is called Standing Out, and I love this, Standing Out as an Introvert in a world of extroverts. I love it because, believe it or not, I'm an introvert most of the time.
Oh, awesome.
Good for you. We've had a whole host of other people that we've interviewed on other things within this broadcast. And I think it's a thing from one introvert to another. I think the thing is, can we just have a purposeful conversation instead of a surfacey conversation? Do you agree, or is it a whole lot more than that? I've got some notes on your talk, but I'll let you have the first word, Asritha.
Yes, I think there, in terms of purposeful and more purposeful conversation, I do think there is like a bias towards more extroverted personality. Like people tend to think that extroverts are more likable and outgoing, which is partly true. But yeah, there is a bias towards that type of personality, and I feel like as an introvert, I've been shamed in school for being more quiet and wanting to spend more time alone. Not that I had social problems, but I like to spend a lot of my time alone. And I guess that was kind of shamed, and it was kind of worrisome behavior, considering I had a sister who was very outgoing and talkative. And so it was kind of a comparison thing where we'd be compared to. And I think it's sort of a problem in institutions like schools. So yeah, that's what I wanted to highlight through my talk.
I love your question. You said, what must I change, or why must I change to fit society's norm of extroversion? I love the reframing. It's brilliant. It's like something an extrovert would do, only we're introverts.
Right.
Why do we need to fit that? Why can't extroverts be a little bit more thoughtful, a little less gregarious, and a little bit more comfortable with the silent times?
Yeah. I totally agree, yeah.
You mentioned some characteristics, and by the way, I'm kind of more of a middle of the road. So depending on what mode, when I take the Myers-Briggs, which is notoriously, sorry to all you Myers-Briggs coaches, but there's a lot of documentation about how unreliable it is, and it's because people like me wreck it because I'm right on the line. If I'm in a good mood, if I haven't been around people, I'll be an extrovert. If I have, I'll be an introvert, and I'm never a very strong one way or another. But I love what you mentioned here.
That's an ambivert, I think.
An ambivert, of course, or an omnivert, or all of the above vert. Being drained with being too social. You also had the real curse for an introvert is when your family moves around and you have all these close friendships and then you have to start over. So what coping mechanisms did you have to be able to start over? Because Army children whose parents are in the Army, this happens to them all the time. Some of them, the best of them, I think all of them, develop little strategies and skills. What did you develop, even though this isn't so much in your wheelhouse? How did you get through?
Well, I think I've only moved once, but like even then it was kind of hard for me because I had I have deeper friendships rather than a lot of friendships. Like I create a deep relationship with one good friend and then we're really close rather than having a variety. And so when I lose that one friend, it's so hard to like go back and start over for me. But like, I guess you kind of have to push yourself because you have really no choice. So it took me a while to get used to. Like my first year at my new school, I hated it because I actually had to push myself to talk and be likable to others so that people would, of course, want to be friends with me. So I guess there's really no choice but to push yourself. But at the end of the day, when you find those good friends, like it's mostly about keeping connections with a few people rather than trying to be friends with everyone like extroverts are usually that. Yeah.
Asritha, you mentioned the benefits of introversion. What are some of the benefits that you mentioned that you see?
Well, there's a lot. So among them, I found through like research and other speakers that introverts are more creative, curious, observant, and they make great leaders, which you wouldn't expect because you expect a leader to be more talkative and like, I guess outgoing, but like they're great listeners. So that's part of the reason why they make great leaders as well. And those are amongst many of the great benefits of introversions.
Yeah, you know,
and they're great critical thinkers. Yeah.
That's a little bit counterintuitive. You would think the leaders would be always just hanging out with all the people and stuff. But I mean, if you're hanging out with people all the time and not taking time to reflect and not thinking of a greater vision or some kind of call to action, I mean, you really, to be a leader, you need to, if you're not naturally able to be an ambivert, you need to incorporate time to be able to reflect, to be a little bit on your own, or have a couple of thinking partners or something like that. Because if you're just hanging out and holding court all day and having a fun time with all your friends, you're not really leading. Maybe that's what it is. If you're with the pack, you're with the pack, and you're not really leading anymore. Isn't that interesting? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I definitely I can relate that to my school situation, because usually people who tend to be chosen as leaders are more extroverted. I've noticed that a lot. And the thing is, like, they're more willing to give their input and give their thoughts on things rather than listen to others, which I guess is an extroverted personality. It's good to be outgoing and give your thoughts on everything, but I find that introverts are really good listeners, and they're really great at getting other people's input on things, and that's what makes them great leaders.
Yeah, well, and it's the strategic it's the strategic questions. It's all of that. And thinking back to grade school, for me, I mean, it's a totally different world. I mean, it's grade school. The leaders, the class president. What really is the class president doing? It's like being the prom queen.
It is.
It's like being the prom queen, only for a whole year. And maybe you get in my day, it was, we're going to get a soda machine, which is the worst thing. That's the worst nutritious thing that we don't. But in my day, it was, we want a candy bar machine, or we want some little goodie. And the class president, if they're a really good class president, they're going to do that. But when we grow up, then we actually have to solve real problems, and we have to be strategic, and we have to get out from the middle of the fray so that we can be strategic, so that the limited time and resources we have can actually go to a purpose and hopefully be successful. So I love thank you for allowing me just to take a little bit of time and really flesh this out, Asritha, because it really hasn't occurred to me that it really is a different game. I've never thought about why did I not hook into this leadership thing when I was a kid? Well, it's because you don't really have leadership as a kid, unless maybe if you're being homeschooled or something like that, and you can kind of set your own thing and maybe excel, or you can excel on the soccer field or something like that. It hasn't really occurred to me. What are your thoughts?
I guess subconsciously, I've also told myself that I'm probably not going to make a great leader, because, I wanted to run for class president this past year. I just graduated high school, but it was on my mind, but I thought, because it's mostly a popularity contest, and seeing the candidates that were against me, they were definitely extroverts and they're definitely popular people. So that was a struggle, but they're more social. They have more friends, of course, because of that. So that's why they get more votes. But I think we should give people who are less out there but have great ideas for what the school needs a chance at such positions, because it's rarely shown.
All right, Talk Universe, I'm going to take a little bit of a risk. I'm going to go out on a limb. Generational disconnect alert. Because I'm thinking, as Asritha is talking about that, I'm seeing Napoleon Dynamite's friend Pedro with the Vote for Pedro shirt, and that perfectly illustrates what we're talking about. It's a popularity contest a lot of times in high school, but then when you go into college, when you start working, when you start getting out there as a working, productive adult, it is a different game, and leadership really does mean leadership, and it should mean leadership younger on. Now, here's my question. Asritha, can you relate to that? Do you know what I'm talking about with Pedro and Napoleon Dynamite, or is that like an old person's movie?
I'm sorry to disappoint you, but I have no idea.
No idea. See, I was right. That was right. You should check it out. It came out like, I think, 10 or 15 whole years ago. You should check it out. You're going to love that. All right, everybody. We've been talking to Asritha Swaminadhan. Am I still saying? We've been talking to Asritha Swaminadhan about her talk, which is called Standing Out as an Introvert in a World of Extroverts, and we will be back with Asritha in just a moment for the Blitz round.
Okay.
We will be back with Asritha in the Blitz round. And we're back with Asritha Swaminadhan. It is time for the Blitz round. Are you ready, Asritha?
Yeah.
All right, first question. Were you selected to speak or did you apply?
I applied. The event took place at my school, so we had like an auditioning process, for lack of a better term. But yeah, I made in the cut amongst a lot of candidates, and it was great. In fact, funny story, the reason I applied was because my dad advised me that it will help me be more outgoing and social, so talking in front of a lot of people apparently, so yeah.
Well, and kudos to you. Kudos to you, because that was a leadership step. We're talking about leadership, and as opposed to, I don't want to knock the class president too much because they do learn and they work with the teachers and their advisors and they do learn the stuff. But you found a very simple and quicker way that's still a pretty grueling process to step up, work on your talk, hone your talk, and to really make an impact. So good for you. Next question. You walk out on stage. Did you have nerves? Were you in the zone? Neither or both?
Okay, so yeah, I think I was the most nervous out of all the speakers that were going on that day, and people could tell, like my teacher who was coordinating the event. But yeah, once I got on, I think even during the talk, you could tell I was a little nervous, but it's not because I regret the whole thing, but like it was still a good experience. But yeah, I was definitely very nervous. Yeah.
Love it. How did you deal with that? Did you just keep plowing ahead, or what were you thinking about, or were you not thinking? Just focus on the talk and get through.
I had minutes before I was going to go on stage, I had a lot of people calming me down, and I was just like taking little breathers. And yeah, well, when I got on stage and started talking, I kind of like just plowed through it, and I kept staring at a wall in the corner instead of making direct eye contact with people in the audience, which is something I've been trying to do less of because it's important to make eye contact with people. But yeah, during that talk, I definitely tried to just get through my speech and do it in the best possible way I could, even though I was really nervous at the time.
What's another tip, tool, or technique that helped you?
Yeah, it was to get less nervous. I did, not making direct eye contact kind of helped. So yeah, staring at a wall or an object or an empty chair helped to be less nervous, and being around people that helped just comforted me before doing the talk. So that was great.
That's interesting. I mean, one tool is breathing, which definitely is going to help everybody. Another tip is if you need to avoid the eye contact, avoid the eye contact, especially if you're an introvert. Avoid the eye contact. Now, that's probably not going to be considered a best practice. However, because this is a branded talk, in this case it's a TED or a TEDx talk, most of the audience is going to be online, and it's a little bit of an interesting thing because you want to acknowledge the audience in the room, but ultimately the audience is going to be YouTube. So YouTube doesn't care, and YouTube viewers can't really tell that you're avoiding eye contact with other people. So if it floats, use it for you, Talk Universe, for sure.
And other stuff that helped me, other stuff that helped me was just continually rehearsing my talk and making sure I had my talking points in format and stuff. So I think improvising wouldn't have worked for me in that situation, but to get less nervous, it's good to have a memorized talk.
Well, and that's the question I forgot to ask you, whether you're a memorizer, improviser, or a blender. So,
So, definitely a memorizer for this talk. I'm working to learn to improvise more, but this TED Talk, I really wanted myself to know exactly what I was going to say before I said it, partly because I was so nervous doing it. I didn't want to bring up something that had no context with what I was saying, but yeah. So that's pretty much why I was memorizer. But
So what was the most unexpected, strange, or just plain weird thing that happened during or right before your talk?
Okay, so during my talk, pressed too hard on my remote, so a lot of the slides that I had in my PowerPoint got skipped through. So I'd be talking about something like an antidote or like a personal experience, and then it had no correlation with the picture that was shown on the screen, and it was sort of weird. So like the audience was kind of confused, but I tried to make sure they were focused on what I was saying and not on the slide. Thankfully, it wasn't shown in the video though. Yeah.
Well, good for you. And that's another example. Really, the audience is YouTube. So, you know, and in my case, the slides that I showed did not make the edit, which really impacts. And that was a very meticulous piece in my case. It didn't make it, unfortunately, which was unbeknownst to me. So it really makes it a little harder if you're going and relying too much on those slides, either live or also in my case for the edit. They didn't make the edit. So good things to know for sure. We have been talking with Asritha Swaminadhan, and her talk is called Standing Out as an Introvert in a World of Extroverts. If you want to check out that talk, go to our show notes page at bethetalk.com. We'll have a clickable link. We will also have the LinkedIn link so that you can connect with Asritha as well. And we will be back in just a moment with the final word of advice. And we're back with Asritha Swaminadhan. It is time for the 10-second final word of advice for Talk Universe.
Okay, I'm going to try to make this 10 seconds. I apologize if it's longer, but
it will be. But that's why I say it anyway.
So yeah, there's a quote from Mark Zuckerberg that always gets to me. It's the biggest risk is not taking any risk at all. I never thought that I could stand up in front of like hundreds of people and do a TED Talk. And this is coming from someone who's deeply terrified of public speaking for the longest time in my academic life. And you could probably tell from watching the talk that I was still nervous, but it was nevertheless an amazing experience. And I want to continue to challenge myself and do things that scare me. And I think other people should as well, because you won't regret it and you'll love the experience. So yeah.
Asritha Swaminadhan, thank you so much for coming on the talk today and sharing your wisdom with Talk Universe.
Thank you for having me. This was great.
All right, that's a wrap. Congrats. Okay. Our newest Talk alumni.
So, can I just exit the screen? Is that enough?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Take care.
You too.
All right, Talk Universe. Take care, everybody.